to my little tutorial here for sculpting characters that are meant to be 3D printed. Okay, so this is ZBrush 4R7, and we're going to be making a bust, not a full size, full body character, but just a bust. We're going to go ahead and make Hellboy, and I'm going to print it out. Well, I'm going to try two different printers, the ANIT A8 and also the MP Select Mini version 2. So those are the ones that we're going to try to make to use to make a quick print, or not quick, well, as quick as possible, of this guy, with enough resolution to capture enough detail. So yep, so what I'm starting off with here is the 32 resolution Dynamesh sphere, and they can be found here in the under the projects, under Lightbox and projects, and if you double click on that 32 resolution project, it'll open it up and it's ready to go. You don't need to push edit or nothing. It's all set. I am currently working on a Intuos 5 tablet sitting on my desktop. I also have a Cintiq 22 HD that I use sometimes, but for this little demo I'm going to use the Intuos. Not everybody has a Cintiq at home, so I'm going to show that you can actually do this stuff with a regular desktop, tablet. I turned off perspective. As you can see, perspective, this is what it looks like when the perspective is on. I don't like to work with perspective. It's a little too much distortion. Although, I mean, you essentially could come here to draw, and you can cut down the view angle to, they say 30 is good. You could do that, and that's kind of respectable. I personally like to just turn it off. That seems to be working fine for me. Okay, and as you can see here, I have my brushes laid out. I don't have a ton of brushes laid out or much of a crazy custom interface. I have a couple of what do you call it, materials that I use, like these two here, and let's see if I can move this up so I can make sure to capture that there. Let's see, there we go. These two materials here, and then I have some brushes, and so you have your clay build up, and then standard, and trim dynamic to flatten things out a little bit, trim curve if you're going to cut something off, and move and all that stuff. Now this isn't much of a ZBrush basics tutorial, but this is kind of geared toward some of the user groups on Facebook that I've noticed a lot of people are expressing a lot of interest in modeling software and what everybody's using and stuff like that. So I get this is my way of showing what software I'm using to see if somebody wants to get into it. Now ZBrush is available for purchase, and I think it's about $800. But there are other options. There's there's two. There's Sculptress, made by Pixelogic as well, and then also the ZBrush Core, which is a trimmed down, I guess entry-level junior version of ZBrush. Except I'm not sure if that one is free or not. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm not altogether sure, that you have to go onto the Pixelogic website to make sure that's the case. So let me start off here really quick. And I don't have any concept art here to start with, just my recollection of what Hellboy looks like. And the reason I don't have any concept art is because I want to make sure that it comes out a little bit unique with whatever comes to mind. I'm using the move brush, and I'm pretty much defining the head at this point. Now ZBrush is, once you learn it, like anything, once you dedicate a little bit of time into learning these things, they come, second nature and easy. I've been using ZBrush for approximately, I want to say, about 10 years or so. Yeah, about 10 years. I've been tooling around with the different versions of ZBrush that have been out. And so I'm going to go a little bit fast. Again, this is not really a basics thing. It's more of so you can see the potential and how these things translate to 3D printing. And at this point, I'm just using the move brush, and all this does is just move these pixels around, these polys around. And ZBrush has a really cool engine called Dynamesh. It's not an engine, but it's I guess you can call it an environment where you can sculpt with clay and bend things however you want, and then ultimately re-dynamesh, and it'll reorder those polygons to redistribute them throughout whatever you distorted, so that it's no longer distorted. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the way it works. So to make the neck here, I'm gonna go ahead and add a cylinder. I'm gonna move it into place. Have perspective on. Move it into place right here. I'm going to hit Q to get back into draw mode, and then I'm going to go back to the move brush, and I'm gonna pretty much shape this into the shoulder area, neck and shoulder area here. Open this up some. The smaller the brush, the smaller the what do you call it? Fall off of influence on the mesh. Let's just move it a little bit like that. I'm not too worried about the flatness of the bottom here of the body, or because I'm gonna clip that off anyway. I'm just trying to get some decent form here, so that I can have something to build on. I think that looks okay to me. I'm going to go ahead and re-dynamesh that, and what that's going to do is it's going to unify these two, but not at the first time I clear the mask. I would see them clear the mask right there. It's not re-dynameshed yet. It's not unified yet. Once I mask again, then it'll unify it. And at this point, because I have no other details, I'm not really worried about that little distortion that happened there, or the little pixelation here on the bottom, because it's just, the idea is just to put these shapes together so they can look like something. So continuing on here, I'm going to give this guy more of a chin. Something that looks a little bit more super heroic, more Hellboyish, tough. But I'm a cartoonist by nature, and I don't like to just do human proportions. I mean, that's something that you learn early on, but then you wanna go ahead and break that. So this brush here is pretty cool. Let me re-dynamesh. I'm gonna go to geometry, and I'm gonna raise this to 64. The resolution, I mean. I'm gonna click polish on, and then I'm gonna re-dynamesh that to make it a little bit smoother, but yet still malleable and manageable at a small resolution, low resolution, that is. At this point, we're only dealing with 26,000 polys, and that's pretty good by ZBrush standards and today's standards, period. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this trim curve brush, and I'm going to chop off that bottom. I'm gonna square off that chin here. Now you see it trimmed right there, so let's undo that and see if I can, if we can hide. Let's see here. Let's go to the lasso here, so I can hide this deal here. And let's see if this time it'll let me chop that off. I mean, it should. No. Oh, I'm using the wrong one. See, this one's cool because this one's the one that, slices things and and it lets you make different polygroups, which is awesome, and that's useful. I just picked the wrong one though. The one I meant to pick was the slice curve, not trim curve. So let's go ahead and try that again. And what just happened? Oh, did it again. I picked the wrong one again. What are the odds? So the one you do want is trim curve. Why is it not doing that? Hold on. Let's figure it out. Maybe because part of the trim curve, yeah, okay, you know what, let me show that again. And alright, screw it. Maybe it wasn't cutting it because this part was hidden, so that's okay. It doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and straighten that out, and we can always move it back into place. Let's move that back in there. As long as I get what I wanted, that flatness there. That's interesting. Okay. So let's go ahead and just one into place right there. And I'm going to start defining a little bit of the features on this dude. So I'm going to come here with the clay builder brush. We're going to kind of come up here with some stuff. Now this doesn't have to look nice yet or anything like that. I'm just throwing down volumes because I'm just gonna mess this up anyway right now because I'm gonna redynamesh it. So I'm trying to define some peaks and valleys and things like that. Kind of work on the jawline here a little bit. And like I said, I'm going to try to get really cartoony with this guy. Right now, at this point, he's still looking his proportions are a little bit too realistic for my taste. But I can't help that. That's built in to my friggin' brain. I have to start off with some sort of realistic anatomy and then kind of ruin it later instead of the other way around. So let's do that. Let's give him a little bit of volume here on the forehead. And then let's a hint of eye sockets, and then there's a dip in here where you kind of, it goes like that. Just trying to define some form. Here we can go down. And mess with it a little bit. And then here I'm going to use an insert sphere. So he can look like Bozo the Clown or the It Clown. If I leave it like that. So let's move this into position here. And like I said, I illustrate cartoons and stuff, and so I tend to think in more cartoony kind of ways. Let's redynamesh that. Okay. Continuing on. And it might be time to move around some of these features a bit more. Exaggerate even more. Get that brow right there. Yeah, see, now we're starting to get somewhere. Let's get that nose sorted out. It's looking a little too like you got punched or something, like you're a boxer. That may not be a bad thing though. So I'm going to come in here with the clay buildup, and I'm going to define a little bit of the nostril there. Yeah. And it's interesting because when you're doing stuff like this and it's meant to be printed, and you're gonna 3D print this thing, you have to exaggerate some of these features because the details can get so subtle in the sculpting process. You don't realize that when you actually prototype the object, that those subtleties are going to even be more subtle when you're holding it in your hand. So a lot of these things are going to have to be exaggerated. Like the brows are going to have to come out more, and the angles are going to be sharper, and things like that. And then when you print it, then you can really see these details. The trim dynamic is really cool because I can come in here and can flatten some of these things out here. One thing that we're missing here is the muscles that go from the base of the skull here down to the top of the clavicle. So let's go ahead and add those. They go right behind the ear at the base of the skull there. Just tendons. So see, you don't have to be too careful here how you do this stuff, because during the Dynamesh process you're just pretty much sculpting like you would with clay, and you're not really worried about details. You're just adding bulk and definition. Not definition, volumes of where the definition will be later. And we can smooth it out a little bit, not too much, who cares, because we're just trying to get enough mass there to build on. And then here you want to come in here and do the back of the neck muscles. And let's go ahead and we're going to add, well, first of all, proportion wise, you're always looking at the proportions and making sure that there's enough volume in different areas. Make sure that everything's shaped right, that it's not, his face isn't looking too fat or weird. Right now I feel that his head is looking at a different proportion than what I want. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make the shoulders a little bit bigger, wider. I'm going to stretch this out some. There we go. And I'm going to start thinking in terms of how I'm going to lay it down on the print bed. And let's go ahead and cut him off right here. There we go. That may need a little bit of support underneath his chin, that's fine. Let's go ahead and add what I'm going to be using for the ears. I'm going to use the insert sphere brush. I'm going to use the move to shape these things into looking like ears. good. And let's go ahead and re-dynamesh in. Oh, that resolution took away a little too much detail for me. So I'm going to go ahead and up that now to 128. And I'm going to re-dynamesh again. And this time it'll retain a little bit more. Cool. So since there is more mass, more clay being used, it needed more resolution to keep some of the detail. Where before 32 was fine, or 64 was fine, because we hadn't added features like ears and noses and stuff like that. Let's go move this forward a little bit. Smooth it out some. Let's go ahead and flatten it out again. And I'm using the trim curve. It flattens it out real good. Now I'm going to start adding stuff like his Hellboy. He's got hair, I think. He's got like hair on the back right there. Let's see here. Let's put his horns in, and then that'll help to start making him a bit more identifiable. Let's see, let's reorient a little bit. And let's move in just a tad. But again, like I said, you know, these things, you have to kind of exaggerate them, you know. So maybe we should scale them up some. Yeah, let's make it nice and cartoony, and that way, you know, it's nice and exaggerated. Let's move them in a little bit. Cool. Let's leave that for now. This is just to help define the volumes. That's funny. Let's dynamesh that bad boy again. Cool. And smooth out the faceting on the side of the cylinders here a little bit. I'm holding down the shift key and just massaging this side all around there. So far so good. And yep. Okay. At this point, it would be a very good idea to save. So let's go ahead and save as. We'll put it on the desktop for now. And let's call this HB demo. Okay. So desktop is, save that. Cool. Let's continue on. And let's see if we can get his mouth kind of detail worked in there just a tad. But you know what, actually, before I do that, I should probably, bear with me, I'm making a little bit of noise, I'm scratching my ear, believe that? I'm gonna add a little bit of his hair, how, you know how he's got his little, you know, hair comes around like this, at least that's what I remember. Let me get out of this red clay business, first of all. And I'm going to put on something that looks a bit more appealing. Let's use this and come back here. That's cool. Yeah, that works a little bit better for me. And his ears are a little pointy, so let's... Now we can start kind of messing. Not a lot of detail, but just some. Make his ears a little bit pointy. Yeah. Gotta smooth out that part of the head that got pulled back a little bit there. Okay. Cool. Alright. And then I'm going to put in, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put in some eyeballs. And those are going to be done in a separate, because I want to keep the definition of the eyeball, so I'm going to keep them separate so that when I dynamesh him, or the head, it won't take the eyeballs with it and kind of ruin that detail. So I'm going to make a cavity right here for the eyes. Smooth it out. Smooth that out. Right there. A little bit more pronounced. I'm going to really get in there a little bit. That should be good. And smooth that out. And then let's re-dynamesh him again. Okay. Good deal. So I'm going to add eyeballs to him. So to do that, I'm going to append these buttons here. You can move them around. If you look at a ZBrush tutorial on how to customize your interface, you'll see how to take some of those buttons or submenus and actually put them here to be easily accessed. So I'm going to append and add a, if it lets me, a sphere, and then we go to that subtool there. We want to go ahead and move it into place here. And we're going to scale them down to eyeball size. I could have added essentially another sphere with the, you know, insert sphere brush, but like I said, I want to make sure that these are kept separate so that they're not, so the eyeball doesn't lose any detail. Let's move that into place there. A little bit more. Okay, cool. And now I'm going to use a plugin called Subtool Master, and I'm going to use the mirror function for it, and I'm going to have it merge it into one subtool so both eyeballs are the same subtool. And as you can see here on the right side here, the subtool palette, you get your eyeballs, and then you have your the head right there. So when I redynamesh, I don't have to worry about those eyeballs getting all mashed in and, you know, losing their detail and all that stuff. So at this point here, I want to save, replace that. That's it. It's good for now. All right. So that's going to be the first part of this video. I will continue on with a part 2, so you don't get too overwhelmed looking at that stuff. Or I'm going to post this one, and then I will continue on the next one, and then on the next video, as I finish, I'm also going to talk about some of the things that you need to do to not have a million polys, you know, at the end of the model, because this has to be 3D printed, and that's what we're going to do with this dude. We're going to 3D print him. So let's do that on the next video.